Welcome to the Spirit and Soul Healing Podcast, where we speak about all things related to spirituality, soul level healing, intuitive guidance, frequencies, and much more. I'm Amy Sikarskie, licensed vocational nurse, past life hypnotherapist, master intuitive energy healer, and a clairvoyant physical channel. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Spirit School Online, where we offer courses in energy therapy, free guided meditations, courses and information around learning to connect in with your spirit guides, and much more. You can find me at amysikarskie.com and offerings at spiritschoolonline.com. In today's episode, Tianna Roser will be joining us, and I'm so excited. Tianna is certified in a number of transformational practices, including Reiki, hypnosis, Between Lives Regressions, quantum healing hypnosis technique, soul plan reading, and soul transformation therapy. Her soul's journey is to empower people through awakening consciousness. She uses tools and processes to help people experience their true self, the source of real healing and growth. As a traveler of the inner and outer worlds, Tianna is passionate about exploring beyond the confines of everyday existence. To learn more about Tianna Roser, her community events, services, and book, please visit awakeningtransformation.com. Hi everyone, I'm Amy Sikarskie and welcome to the Spirit and Soul Healing Podcast. I'm really excited to have an amazing guest here with us today, Tianna Roser, and we've actually been speaking and it's like, oh my gosh, hurry, we need to hit record. So the energy is already flowing and we're just so amped up and happy to share many aspects of our spiritual journey with you. Some intriguing information I know Tianna is going to be bringing through, some really beautiful, deep soul healing insights. And our intention is to bring joy and laughter to life and spirituality and those healing moments where sometimes it can feel really heavy. So we're definitely not discounting the contrasting energies that are the catalysts to get us here. But I feel like today is going to be an incredible episode. So welcome and thanks for joining, and thank you for being here, Tianna.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I always love talking to you. We could talk forever.
Right, absolutely. And so for our listeners that might not know, we met quite a few years ago when I lived in San Antonio, and Tianna was my first regressionist for one of my very first past life sessions, hypnosis sessions. And later we connected. I reached out to you and took your Reiki training classes for the teacher level. So we have a beautiful past and experience, and it's so nice to reconnect all these years later after I left Texas and went and traveled, and we're back now. But you're in Austin, I'm in Houston. So I've heard so many of the amazing experiences that you're sharing with others and the groups that you have. And that kind of leads us into one of your latest and newest upcoming opportunities. So I'd love for you to share with everyone kind of what you've been up to, what you're about, and this new experience that's being, let's say, birthed. It's coming forward.
Yeah, so this has happened really very recently. What happened is, like, in the last couple of months, I've been feeling so much energy. And back in 2015, my Kundalini activated. And since then, there are some like major kind of waves of like really big energy. Sometimes, especially initially, there was like some major clearing, which kind of created this dark night of the soul. If anybody's familiar with Kundalini, it goes and it starts to activate and awaken through your chakra system and clear stuff out. And so there's kind of this really dark period where you clear a lot of karma, and then there's a lot of activation as well. And so the early part of this year, Kundalini started to really activate again. And I was like, wow, what's going on? And I was finding that when I meditate, or when I guide, because I'm a hypnotherapist, when I guide clients into hypnosis, or I'm also energy healer, right? So when I'm doing energy, my body was starting to like do this thing where it was like swaying, and I was feeling this energy, kind of like the Kundalini, like sort of snake-like movements. I started to feel, and this was happening every single time, and also feeling this sort of weight or heaviness in my third eye. And I was like, what's going on? Well, I'm just going to let this energy move through me. So I've been doing that. And then I started to feel kind of like a presence behind my eyes, I guess is the best way. When I meditate, and I'm working on another book, and when I'm working on that, I don't know, I started to feel this presence. I'm like, what is going on? Okay, well, I'll just, let it be. And then one night I was contacted by an ascended master named Serapis Bey, who I didn't really know that much about. I have these oracle cards called the Keepers of the Light. And that is one of the, so it's all these different high level beings, and you can pull a card each day and get a message. And so I'd seen the name before there, but that was about all I knew. But he works with particular frequency. There are these frequencies called the 7 rays. They are different qualities of divine will energy. And he works on the 4th ray, which is called harmony through conflict. And it's ascension ray, and ascension is kind of, I'm sure you and all your listeners know, is the shift that we're going in through, from lower to higher vibration, and we're anchoring those energies on the planet. So anyway, he started to come in and tell me that I'm supposed to work on the 4th ray right now, and to help. We're needing this 4th ray, particularly on the planet right now, harmony through conflict, because you can see all the polarization and all of the opposing sides, right versus wrong, and self-righteousness. And this is creating this division, and ascension is about moving into, 5th dimension and higher, which is going to be unity consciousness. And right now we're in the 3D illusion of separation. And so anyway, so I accepted that. Okay, I'm happy to work. I didn't really know that much about the rays, but I didn't realize I had been, there's this author named Sanaya Roman, and she channels this high being named Oren. And I've been working with their programs, read all of their books, and they have a number of meditation series and things like this. And I've always really loved their energy. It's very heart-centered, which has always been my path, is the heart path. And just really beautiful energy. And when I moved to Austin back in 2008, so 14 years ago, I had started a meditation group, a monthly meditation group, and we would listen to this one series from Sanaya Roman and Oren called Transforming with Divine Will. And it was very popular, and people loved it, but my partner at the time didn't really want people coming into our place anymore, and I kind of stopped doing it. And then, yeah, recently I just felt drawn to go back to that. It'd been years, because I had it on cassette tape. That's how long ago it was. But they offered where you could buy it again on, you could download it for a reduced price if you had bought it before. And so I was like, oh, I want to do that. And so it's interesting, because spirit will come to you and like just kind of these inner feeling, inner knowing. So while that was happening and this Serapis Bey visited, I didn't even realize at the time that they were connected. Because as I went back and started to listen to the Transforming with Divine Will, I realized that the 7 qualities of divine will are the same thing as the 7 rays. And Serapis Bey had asked me to form a study group working with these energies. And so we're going to be using this series transforming with divine will. And it's really nice because Sine Roman and Oren, they're so generous because they really let people use their materials if they're, you know, using it for the greater good. And so they have all this material about how to present it and share it and so forth. And so really just kind of follow that. What I was told from Serapis Bay and a few other ascended masters that have been coming through to me was that, so this is group work. It's even when you do it on your own, like if you had purchased this material from Sine Roman Oren, they always have you connect with all the other beings on the planet that are working, you know, we're working together in the unseen realms because these vibrations are so big that so high that we can't assimilate it on our own. We need the group, and so that we can all sort of anchor this energy. And so so I've just been pushed to set up this group. It's free. It's going to be 90 minutes, and I will kind of introduce information about that particular quality of will. We will listen to the meditations together, and that group energy will be embodying and anchoring that energy within us. And so it's really practical and beneficial for our personal life to bring these high vibrational energies in, but we're also doing it collectively for the planet and for creating the new earth. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about it. It wasn't something that was even on my radar. I've always got a million projects. You know, we've got a podcast, and we've got a meetup group in Austin, and I've got my practice, and I'm writing another book. And it's like, oh, okay, one more thing. But I know how important it is. And anytime these higher beings come through and ask us to do something that's for the greater good, you know, we need to step in service. And so I'm excited for that.
I am too. I am. And the timing of it on every level. I mean, there's so many perspectives and aspects to say related to the timing of it, but even the fact that it came through right before, pretty much right before our conversation today. And so when you're sharing it, I'm just curious, is it going to be available online for those that are not in Austin, or will this be an in-person meetup group?
It's via Zoom. So
Okay.
anyone who has internet access and wants to join, yeah, there's links. And so if you go to my website, awakeningtransformation.com, I already put it up. Yeah, I got very encouraged. I was going to say push, but that doesn't sound good. They encouraged me. They really wanted me to have it up today. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
supposed to share it first on your podcast because they really wanted me to have it up today. And so I did it right before. So it's all up there. So if people go to my website and you go to classes, events, you'll see it there, and you can click on there and sign up for it, and it'll email you the Zoom links and the dates and everything. So yeah,
Wow.
anybody who has the desire to connect to these energies can come.
I am so looking forward to this. When you first mentioned it, before we hit record, I'm like, oh, we need to hit record. But I just got chills. I could feel how magnificent and important, supportive, and powerful this coming together in a space with intention to anchor the light. It's really going to be, and the timing for what's needed on earth right now, absolutely. It makes sense that he'd come through and kind of like, I always feel like they're knocking or tapping, like, hello, I have a little message. And then, are you listening? It just gets a little bit more encouraging, if you want to call it encouraging. And you're like, okay, yes. And so this is so beautiful because you have a really strong history of working with people, with the public and individual and community. And I feel like they recognize, okay, Tianna is this beautiful light worker. She can communicate with spirit. And at a soul level, there must have been some agreement that you were like, okay, although in my humanness, in my what I have on my schedule, I have 5 projects going on, and it's like this takes precedence right now. So, and you go with it. You lead with your heart, and you'll be supported. And I know that the community that will be coming together with this are all going to be like minds and hearts. And I think that's one thing that many, at least I know, many people that I've been speaking with lately kind of say they feel a little bit alone if you want to use the term as a light worker, or somebody who's into the understandings that we, function with, all of everything that the podcast is about, they feel a little bit alone. That maybe their friends and their family, those local in their community, don't quite get the lingo and the vibration. So this will be so beautiful also for a sense of community. So, like you were saying, help you individually and then help the collective and feel that support.
Yeah, so much of my path had been solo. I've been a lone wolf initially, like when I first awakened spiritually, and I was in my early 20s, and there really wasn't anyone like me, and my friends weren't interested in this. And I had moved from Hawaii to Boston, and there were different kinds of groups. And I joined a bunch of different groups trying to kind of find my tribe. And this was years ago. And so, things have really shifted, even like in the last decade, as far as how much more mainstream and popularized, which is great, making it much more easy. But this was kind of pre-internet being a real big thing. Anyway, yes, I just kept going to these groups, and there was lovely people, but they were just in a totally different stage of their life. It was mostly kind of retired, silver-haired people, and they were just different from me, and I liked them, but I never felt like, oh, these people are my tribe. And so after kind of doing that for a while, and there's a lot in between that, you read my book, there's like, oh yes, and Tianna was part of this organization that was kind of a cult, but like there's lots of things. And there's so much in the story. But anyway, so then I was just kind of on my, I decided to just kind of be on my own for a while and do that, because I didn't feel like I had these like-minded people. And I got real comfortable in that. But then, yeah, spirit pushes you. Spirit was pushing me to put myself out there more, to find and create community. And so really, in the last, I don't know, 5-7 years or so, I've put my energy that way a lot. And also, to what you're saying, a couple of things. One is, oh my gosh, I forgot what I was too many ideas and things coming in at the same time. But one of the things actually is that in the message when Therapist Bay was coming through, he was saying that there are a lot of light workers on the planet right now that don't know, they're a little bit lost as far as how to serve. And this is going to give them an opportunity. Serving is just anchoring and embodying these frequencies, and we can do it in a group level. So it doesn't mean that everybody has to quit their job and do what you and I do. Somebody might be working in the corporate world, or working minimum wage and at the grocery store or whatever, and they're still a light worker. And they're still, if we are accessing these higher vibrations and embodying it, we're bringing that energy everywhere we go. We're also just anchoring in the planet, and any inner work that we do, any spiritual work that we do, even privately, and nobody ever has to know about it, is helping the collective, is helping the planet. We're creating these pathways for, we're shifting the energy, making it easier for everyone. And so yes, it's just an opportunity for people to connect with other like-minded people, because we will have sharing and discussion after we do the meditation part. But also it's an opportunity, if you don't know, you really want to help create this new way of being on the planet, that's not strife, and it's not ego driven, and it is love and cooperation and peace and goodwill. This is one way that's, I guess, relatively simple, right? In a way, it's simple to show up and to talk to people and to receive these energies. What's not simple is then to let it process through your life, because as you bring in higher vibrations, it is going to kind of clear out some of the lower stuff, just like I was saying, maybe not as abruptly as my Kundalini activation, but we're all going through this, where this is why things are so crazy on the planet right now. We're going through a big, energetic detox, or some people say ego death, or whatever you want to say. It's an awakening where our lower stuff needs to come up, and we need to heal and transform it. And this is a way to transmute those energies with a higher vibration.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you explain that. You show up and you might say, this is kind of easy, and it really is. But then just being open to the transformation that will occur. And that's the beautiful part. Yeah, it can be a little heavy at times as you're clearing and healing, but think about on the other side. You're going to feel so more present and embodied, full of light, online with your, I call it like your frequency. So then that will help you step into your soul light path. And as you were sharing, I kept getting flashes of like things that I was responding to, and I recognized I was looking at everything from a higher perspective, like a soul level. And then I laughed to myself. I thought, well, of course, I'm talking to Tianna here. And of course, all the conversation would flow in that way where I would automatically go um, from these perspectives. And so when you're sharing about the aspect of light working in all these different communities and the lifestyle or where we are as a human in this life, that's what got me thinking to it. Like, yes, you can be working at a grocery store or a CEO of a corporation. It doesn't really matter. That's just one facet and aspect of this experience. But beyond that, your soul light is here at this important time for a very important reason. And I think it's like we all say, okay, well, I'm going to sign up, put me here, put me there, and we just sprinkle the earth. So that's leading me into the past life healing work that you do. And moreover, it's more like I'm really intrigued in the soul, the life between the life work that you do. So if you could share with our audience, share with our listeners, what got you into the Newton School of Past Life Regression work and a little bit about that. Any insights that come through. I just find it fascinating. This is something that was like one of our initial connections. I really resonate with looking at life from a different perspective. And when we can, it brings in, I think for me, a little bit more support and peace. Like, okay, we're embodying it now. And it's one way to access it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love, 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 love doing spiritual regression. And, so past life regression, life between lives, and also do quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is Dolores Cannon's technique.
Yes.
Um, all of it is super fun and exciting. You never know what is going to come up. And I love that. So it's never going to be, a dull job. And yeah, actually what started me even just doing all of this kind of work was Michael Newton's book, Journey of Souls. And it's a great classic book. If there's anyone that hasn't read it, I really recommend that one and his other book, Destiny of Souls. They're those kind of books that you read and it just hits you and you're like, yes, this is true. That's how I felt. That's how a lot of
Yeah.
people, when I talk to them, feel like, oh yeah, there was something that's like, yes, this is so true. It's what I've felt and known. But now here's like thousands of case studies that sort of prove it. So I was not raised in a spiritual tradition. And so I was an atheist. And then after I started working in the corporate world, right after college, and I thought I wanted to be this corporate businesswoman. And then I got what I wanted, and it wasn't what I wanted because I wasn't
Mm.
connected to my authentic self. I was just, I think a lot of people can relate to that. We don't know who we are. That's why I think it's so crazy that we're supposed to like decide, in college what we want to do for the rest of
Right.
our life. We don't know who we are at that age. Who knows who they are? It takes
Yeah.
years of figuring that out. Anyway, that combined with some other experiences of during college, I was working at this sort of after hours club as a waitress, and I got into the rave scene, and there was something, now I can understand what it was that was so intriguing. It was this like whole, this subculture, right? This whole other world that you go
Yeah.
into where everyone can be unique and different and nobody's judging them. And I did MDMA or ecstasy, and that it was, I guess, used to be sometimes called empathy, and it really kind of, it's
Mm.
very heart-centered. It's where you see everyone and you feel very connected to them. You feel connected to everything. You feel connected to music and a plant and everything, you feel the oneness. And so there was sort of a triggering, a remembrance. It activated a remembrance of this is the way it's supposed to be. Everything is connected. We're not all separate, and we can all be different. And so there was something about that whole rave scene ecstasy experience that awakened me. So that combined with sort of the realization of like, oh my gosh, what I thought that I wanted to be for the rest of my life is not it. It sort of pushed me onto this self-discovery journey. And I started, there's a whole lot of story behind that, but like I started meditating, and yeah, so I wrote this book, and so if anybody wants the full story, you can, yeah, you read my book. It's called Awakening Transformation, where I kind of tell the whole story because there's kind of a lot in there, but basically how I connected to my spirit guides first, and they were the ones, I connected to them through the Ouija board, which I'm not necessarily that was the path I took because I had read this book, the Seth books, and that's how she had connected to Seth. And I was like, okay, well, that's how you do it. Let me try it. And it worked. But they told me that I needed to learn how to meditate. I started meditating. And once that, which was really hard at first for me, at least, I was very much in my left brain and was always going, and to just kind of learn how to quiet my mind. It took me like 45 minutes to an hour of just kind of listening to a guided meditation to finally sort of get in a quiet state. And then something magical would happen. And so once I kind of had that shift, I just always wanted to meditate, and I would meditate for 3 or 4 hours at a time. So that first hour was just quieting my mind. And then all sorts of crazy stuff started happening. And one of the things actually was that there was a period of time where I just started going into past lives after I had settled in, just boom, I'd find myself in a past life. And I really didn't know if I believed in past lives at that point, but it was just happening to me. I kept going into past lives, or I would be out of body and I'd be floating above my body. And I was feeling energy. And so all of these crazy things were happening. And I just felt this really massive urge to understand what was happening to me. Started reading all these books. And this is, before YouTube and all of that. So I was really just reading books. That's what she did. And so Journey of Souls was one of the books that I read really early on. And it just so resonated with me. And I was thinking, oh, this guy has the coolest job. I can't imagine just, being able to spend your whole day going on, a tour of spirit world and learning about someone's soul evolution. I really strongly remember having that thought and not ever thinking like, oh, that could be me, because that's the cool thing about the spiritual journey is when we're ready, it'll be made known to us. And so a lot of things are already there. It's like you said, before we come into incarnation, we've set certain things up, and there are certain cues, and there are souls, other people, or other things that will happen to sort of activate our remembrance. And if we don't get it this time, it'll pop again here. And if we still aren't getting it, it'll pop again here. And that's happened to me so many times with so many things. And the book is one of them. I've been told for years and years, and I kept being told, and when I say being told, I mean like by like psychic intuitives or some kind of, Akashic Records reader or my own guides. And then I would try, and then I'd be like, this is too hard, or I don't have anything interesting to say. And then I'd stop. And then the message would come back around again and again until I finally wrote that first book. And then I see how once you get the ball rolling, oh, okay, now I can do that. And so actually, this is also true. Going back to Serapis Bay, so now I'm writing this other book, and I was going back through I have all these journals from years and years. I have a lot of channeled messages in there, and I'm gathering them up for this next book. And I came across a journal entry from 2017, so 5 years ago, where Serapis Bay had visited me before, and I totally didn't remember. It was so, again, it's so synchronistic, right?
Yeah.
Because I just been getting messages and then I found it and then I'm like, oh, I'm sure that was guided, just like this Neo Roman thing was guided. So yeah, so he had come in like 5 years before, and I wrote it down. I didn't know who he was, and I had a hard time. I couldn't really get a clear message from him the first time when he came, and then I just forgot about it. That's all these things that will happen, and I'll just
Yeah.
forget about them for years and years, and then it'll come back. And so, sort of like that. So yeah, my whole spiritual journey has been like that. So I read these books by Michael Newton, and I really love them, but I wasn't ready to do that work. So I went about going on my spiritual journey and doing a lot of inner child work and shadow work and working with my chakras and energy healing and all of these things. And then I was running a yoga center, and one of the students came in and told me like, oh, I'm reading this really good book. It's Journey of Souls. And I was like, yeah, I need to read that book again. That was a good book. And that time when I read it again, it was so clear in my head, oh, I'm supposed to do this work. It was so strong.
Yeah.
And so I just, at the back of the book, it, has the Newton Institute. So I contacted them. I want to do this training. And they said, you need to be certified as a hypnotherapist and have been practicing for 2 years and done X amount of past life regression. So I don't remember the number now, but so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go about and do this. And so this is when I was living in California, and which was great because California had some really good hypnosis schools, or I could call it, so in California, I can call it hypnotherapy. And I
Yeah.
consider myself a hypnotherapist, but legally in Texas,
Right.
I'm not allowed to call myself a hypnotherapist. I have to call myself a hypnotist. It's just one of those silly things. But
Right.
anyway, so I went about, I found a school. I was living in Los Angeles, but the school I really liked, the teacher I really liked was in the Bay Area, because I really wanted a school that had enough hours of training, but also had this spiritual part, because that's the whole reason I was becoming a hypnotherapist. I actually was not that interested in stop smoking or losing weight,
Right.
those kind of things. That's usually the bread and butter of a hypnotherapist. I just wanted to do it so that I could do life between lives. But I found this great school called HCH, and it's in the Bay Area. And so it would be on the weekends, and we'd commute the 6 hours or whatever,
Wow.
5 hours. But it was so worth it because I wanted to go to this school. And then after I went to the school, they had a 6-month supervised internship, which is also not very common. And so we moved to the Bay Area so that I could do the internship there. And then I found, so I learned past life regression there, and I loved it. It's still probably the thing I do the most. I do a lot of past life regression because a lot more people know about past life regression than necessarily know about life between lives. Quantum healing hypnosis technique is becoming much more popularized now too, but still past life regression is probably what I do the most. So yeah, it's just, I love it. You never know, depending on what spiritual teacher you ask, we've lived hundreds or maybe even 1,000 lifetimes. And people who are still thinking in linear time, we're like, how's that possible?
Right.
Because it's not linear, right? Everything,
not.
time is all, now. And so we could be experiencing, concurrently lifetimes. And then if you also think of parallel lives, like there's the idea that every maybe choice that you make splits off and there's another timeline and another parallel life, then you could see how there could be many lifetimes happening all at once in different times in different places. And, it's only for us here in the 3D world that we use time as a way to sort of be able to focus. And so it helps us to think of things in a linear fashion, but it's really more, all time is now. And so, everything I joke with my clients, everyone's had exciting lifetimes, boring lifetimes, traumatic lifetimes. We've had, it all. And your soul is going to choose which lifetime is helpful for you today. And so I don't know ahead of time. I'm like you, I'm pretty much walking in the dark. I don't know what's going to happen either. I have no idea where your soul is going to take us, but I have 1000% trust, because I've been through the process enough time that I know your soul knows what it's doing. Your soul's in charge, not me. I'm here holding the space. I'm, facilitating, but your soul's in charge. And I 1000% trust your soul. And I'm asking you to align with that as well, and trust to know that your soul loves you. Your soul is very wise, has known all of your lifetimes, and knows which one will be most beneficial to reveal to you today for your highest good for today. It's not just for curiosity. It's going to bring up something that will help you from today on, whether that's clearing and healing something, whether that's giving you greater insight to who you are, or maybe your relationships with people, or maybe whether it's helping you access skills and abilities that you had in other lifetimes, and it's time to activate them. There's so many really cool things that can happen in past life regression. And then, so going back to Michael Newton, the life between lives is what happened after we died in our life right before that. And then the period, whatever, the experience between after we died in our last life and before we chose to reincarnate in this lifetime. And so for people who haven't read the books or aren't familiar, basically it can happen in different order, but usually people will be connecting with a guide or guides. So there's that component. There might be some clearing or reviewing from that life that just completed right before this one. Sometimes we go into a healing place if that was a difficult lifetime. And then we have our soul group or our soul family or our soul tribe, whatever term you want to use. We're kind of have these like classmates that we're all incarnating with together. And our soul groups oftentimes either have maybe a common core, a theme or focus, or just maybe level of awareness that we're at. And so that can be really exciting and wonderful, especially if, again, like we're talking about kind of feeling alone, or this maybe sense of loneliness that many of us have on the path for not having others relate to us on this level. Connecting with your soul group is like, that feeling of home and being understood. And so, relaxed and seen and connecting. There's a council of elders, or there are councils of elders, high level evolved beings that watch over our whole evolution as a soul. So our many lifetimes, and kind of watch over the whole evolution. And so we don't always meet with them between every single life. So not every one of my clients goes to the Council of Elders in the life between lives, but many do. And they're not judging us. And that's one of the beautiful things that, some people are surprised about how much love and acceptance, or even playfulness. A lot of times, some of the guides and so forth can be really fun and playful, and kind of tell us not to take ourselves so seriously. But some guides are fairly serious, so it's just different according to our soul and what works for us. But the Council of Elders can help us to see sort of where we're at on our evolutionary journey and give us some feedback and some guidance. Also, there could be the planning stage for this life. You had more than one possibility of, not just Amy, you could have been Andy, or I don't know, Abdul or whatever. You had different choices of different bodies, and each one kind of offered a different opportunity, and you chose to be Amy in this lifetime for different reasons. Different types of bodies respond to the energies differently. And so, like if I was wanting to ground a lot of energies, I would have come into like a bigger, sturdier body. So a lot of times, like I'm very, I think you're probably this way too, so being very sensitive, and energy affects me a lot, and emotions affect me a lot. And there's the pluses and minuses of that. Being sensitive is great for the work that we do, and you channel and I channel, and that we're able to receive these really refined thought impressions and energies through being very sensitive. But then we also have to, be aware of how sensitive we are and really take care of this vehicle, because it can be easily affected through our practices and so forth. And so we had different opportunities, or, somebody else maybe was working maybe more on the intellectual level, and they needed a really strong left brain, where, I'm like, I'm really more right brain. And that's what I came in, so there's that. And then the client will bring in questions that they want asked, and that questions could get asked to guide or guides, council of elders, or even the person in their higher soul state could bring through. Sometimes it's funny because they'll be like, ha, 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 that's not an important question. That's not an important question. It's like the person came in thinking like, oh, I really need to know, this. And so on the personality level, what we might think is really important on the soul level might not think is that important. But certainly my job as the facilitator is to try to get those questions asked if possible. So kind of there's also just, I jokingly, I always want to call them jobs, like, oh, what is our job on the other side? But it's not, that doesn't sound very fun. It's not, they're not jobs, that they're like, what do we like to do? We're not just, I always say, like, we're not just like playing the harp. That's not how you play the harp, but how boring would it be? Like, we're all just laying around playing the harp. No, there's different things. Some souls are explorers and may go to many different realms and explore, and some are like the researchers and that hold the kind of the librarian of the Akashic records, or some like to create with sound or color and energy. And there's just so many exciting things that's not boring at all. And some will be teaching or mentoring other levels of souls. And there's lots of different things that we do on the other side. And it's really neat to, I get to be sort of the fly on the wall when my client is describing to me what they're experiencing. And I really feel the energy of it as well. Whenever we're doing these kinds of spiritual regressions, it's cool to, because I'm not very inner visual, so I'm not seeing what they're seeing really, but I'm feeling it. I feel it all, the vibration. And so it's really beautiful. Sometimes I'm just so in awe that, oh, this is what I get to do for a living. This is how I, spend my life, because I can remember back in the corporate world, or I can remember before then when I was in high school, working for minimum wage in a store, and how unfulfilling that was for me. And I really, part of my passion too is just to want everyone to be able to live whatever their soul came in to live, and feel like, that our life is joyful expression of whatever our soul wants. And that hopefully this new earth that we're shifting into, where we can all be supportive doing what we love and spending our time in that joy energy, and not feeling, stuck in a system that's not aligned with our highest potential and expression.
Right. Oh my goodness, thank you for sharing. I have so many thoughts. Oh, I'm just taking it all in, and it's fascinating. But the one thing that's coming to me is what you just mentioned about the shift. And there is some deep level soul information as far as like memories and wisdom, but also it can be the vibration that you access. So you can find healing, and if you're curious, you can get answers to questions and all of this. But there's that other part about being able to connect in with your light and letting it then, it's like you have this stronger connection. So then you can start to embody it a bit more and a bit more. So, especially right now, I think many of us might find different modalities to assist in whatever it is that we're experiencing. But there's a strong benefit to the regression work where you go in with an open heart and intention. Your guides are there. Like you mentioned, you're trusting in the soul wisdom. And you can walk away, or, you can leave that experience having a number of different, let's see, like I just see them as vibrations right now. I'm seeing colors and light, I'm seeing codes. So any form of assistance or reassurity, that support, but also that enhanced aspect of, okay, wow, I feel really recharged and reset and on my path now. So, do you see a lot of transformation? Like, I mean, because this is a fun part if it happens, do you get feedback weeks or months later from some of those, that you've assisted? And what has that been like for you as a therapist?
Yeah, that's the really, really rewarding part, is to get that feedback. And it is those kind of words like transformative and life-changing. And even, people sometimes will, I had a client recently that maybe was, I don't know, from 5 or 6 years ago, had a past life regression, and then came back again and was telling me how still that, 5 or 6 years ago, she's still, there's like layers. And this is what I've seen in
Mm-hmm.
my own experiences, is like, you can understand it at a certain level when you first experience it.
Mm-hmm.
But then in a few years, and this is true for kind of all of our spiritual experiences as well, right? It's the same as like reading a book, reading Journey of Souls,
Yeah.
20 years ago, and then reading it again. You can go deeper into deeper layers of it. And so these experiences are like that, where it helps you see something very clearly. Because like I said, your soul sort of hand selects, of the hundreds of lifetimes, which one is relevant and most helpful for you now. And so a lot of times we'll see it first on that first level, of how it makes sense in what maybe issue or what I'm ready to open to. But then over some time, you can then again see a whole nother piece of it. And so, yeah, it's one of the things I really love about it too, is that the client is experiencing it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's not me telling them their past lives, which is valuable too. And I've had people, I've had intuitives or teachers that told me about some of my past lives, and then years later, it would come up in a meditation where I experienced it myself, and like, oh yeah, I understood it at a certain level of how it fit into a bigger picture when they told me about it. But then when I experienced it myself, I understood it at a whole, deeper
Yes.
level. But even sometimes sometimes people go to past life that sounds really simple, and yet it was so powerful for them, one, just to have a perspective of just a different worldview perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because we can only, I'm only in this body, this lifetime. And so, I have my childhood, and that was my childhood. And that's going to be a certain kind of perspective. And so I won't have this other perspective from, a different part of the world, or a
Mm-hmm.
different time, or different socioeconomic status, or different kind of parents or whatever. And so when we go into these other lifetimes and we just get to have a totally different perspective, yeah, it sort of awakens you, but also it sort of yeah, so it gives you like lots of compassion, empathy for these other perspectives that you might not have been able to understand before, because you have to walk in those shoes to understand it. But also it sort of puts you in that higher self, because you're realizing like, oh, this is an outfit I'm wearing in this
Right.
way, this is the meat suit that they said, right? And so
Yeah.
and you realize like, oh, and that could easily change. And so we get really identified with this body and this life and this experience, and we can feel weighted from it. It can feel heavy. It's like I'm trapped in this suit, right? And so to be able to step in a totally different one, and have a totally, like, suddenly we realize like, okay, this isn't forever. This is temporary. I need to appreciate it while I have it. And this is one of the things I really love about being the practitioner, is that I get to kind of be there with somebody. Like I might do I might do 3 in a day, and have, three very different life experiences, and very different worldviews, and very different perspectives. And then it's constantly reminding me, just of the bigger picture, that we're all of these things. And
Mm-hmm.
really, so yeah, people, I think, a lot of times are freed in a certain way from the limitations that they might have felt, in this body or in this life, and have really identified with,
Mm-hmm.
and also shifted into their more of their soul perspective and energy, and have a lot more empathy and compassion for other perspectives. And a lot of times too, some people come and they think that they're coming just out of curiosity, and this is just kind of and it can be like the first time that they experience. Recently I've had a number of people like this, and when they come in and they tell me like, yeah, I don't really know why I booked this session, and no, I've never really, I've tried meditating, but I'm not really a meditator. It's kind of hard. And no, I've never connected to my guides and my soul. And I'm thinking like, I wonder how this is going to go. I
Right.
try to give the good pre-talk, you may or may not go into a past life on the first try, but always the session will be for your highest good, and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. But surprisingly, yeah, a lot of people that maybe weren't necessarily all that focused spiritually. A lot of times their soul just pushes them to do the session. And then it just opens the doors to this, whole perspective of many lifetimes and being a soul. And so it's really, really exciting stuff every single time. I love just kind of never knowing where it's going to take us. Initially, when I think when you first start doing this work, that's sort of terrifying because you're like,
Yeah.
what do I do? But then once you get used to it, it's really the same. It's really taught me a lot. It's the same as my spiritual journey. It's just it's so much about trust.
It
So much
is.
about trust and knowing that you're always guided. And so once I started to be that kind of practitioner and just give it over to the higher power and know that it's not about me, it's not about me at all. I just have to be in alignment with this bigger force that's happening for this person. It's happening here right now on the planet, and we're all playing, our role in it. And so if I can trust that and just align myself with that through holding a high vibration and a positive intention, then it's all going to turn out fine. So,
Mm-hmm.
so for me, I've really, through all the different things, and I think Reiki really helped me with this, about recognizing just to trust and be in the flow, and know that when you hold the highest intention, the highest good will come. But really just living my whole life that way. And that's part of like I said, this divine will thing that's happening. I'm like, okay, they came at me really kind of quickly and really kind of out of the blue. And I'm like, all right, this is what's being asked of me. This is for the highest collective good.
Yeah.
Then I will do what's asked. And so when we do that, it's really exciting, actually. If once we get to that trust point where we know that and so past life regression and spiritual regressions, a big part of it is that they are showing us that we're always okay. Look, your body got maimed, and I'm laughing, but I'm laughing
Yeah.
because it's true. Because I think we're so afraid of what's going to happen to this body. And I'm not saying we should honor this body and take care of it, but it's beautiful to know also that when the body's gone, we're actually okay, and we're always
Yeah.
loved. And for people to really plug into that, it makes sense, if you're studying things and reading these books, and intellectually it makes sense, but to feel and know that you're always okay, and that you're divinely loved, and you're so guided and supported, like once you feel that's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's like, what happens after? That's a big question that I sometimes would contemplate on before I started studying past lives and reading the books about and in sessions, people expressing what is it like to leave the body, whether it was a traumatic death or a very peaceful one. And so knowing that the soul is always there to support. And I don't know if you've ever had any experience that would like contradict this, but in my experience, it's like if it was a traumatic death, they kind of left the body before, so they didn't really feel it. It's like, no, you're being taken care of. You're blessed. It's not. It's peaceful in a sense.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's such a good point to bring up. And even, trauma that I experienced in this life, this was before I was even on a spiritual path. I left my body and only later realized what that was. Cause I left my body and I suddenly felt all this peace, even though there was trauma happening to my body at the time. And, now I realize like, oh, that's what happens. And even people, that maybe have been a survivor of abuse in this lifetime, have the same experience where they disassociate. So
Yeah.
we separate from our body if trauma is happening there. And so that can reassure people that's the same at death. If there's trauma happening to the body, we can leave it. And so, so we don't have to actually experience that the pain that people so often people feel a sense of freedom actually leaving their body. And like I said, I can relate from a trauma experience in this lifetime where crazy, like it didn't make sense to me because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't even on spiritual path yet, but I suddenly felt all this peace and I just felt like, oh, I'm okay. And so when our body dies, that's how people feel as well. Or if you ever listen to people who've had near-death experiences, it's the same kind of thing. They talk about how much love and how 99% of the time you hear how they didn't want to come back.
Yeah.
And they were told they have to come back and they didn't want to come back because they were just bathed in all of this love and this peace, and then to come back to the body. And somebody said that, I don't know who first said that, but like we have it backwards, that being born is the trauma and dying is the release. And because when we come from, we're like unlimited, and then we get put in this like limited body, and the baby can't even be in control of itself yet, doesn't have all of its faculties developed yet. And so that is really confusing and traumatic. Whereas when we release our body, we get expanded into higher knowing and greater love. And so why wouldn't we enjoy that feeling of realizing like, oh, I thought that I was this and I'm this.
Yeah. So I think that one thing, I mean, that just came to me, that whole aspect of the regression work or experience, and seeing the moments that you release and you're closing this life and you cross over. But there are so many pieces of information, like, those little thoughts that you've had, maybe you've contemplated on your whole life, or like these little, I don't know, I call them little vibrations that are just undercurrents of reality that can be answered or have more information presented to through the past life regressions and the spirit between, or the life between lives. So those spiritual regression works. So, wow, thank you so much for sharing with us. And I'm sure everybody's going to want to book a session now or like question, if the timing's right. So, do you offer remote sessions for yeah?
Yeah, like probably like most people, when pandemic hit, suddenly I was on Zoom. And so I do a lot of things so everything, trying to think if there's everything that I offer, whether it's energy healing or whether it's past life regression, life between lives, QHHT. I have other programs as well, Reiki classes, like everything is available on Zoom as well, virtual.
Perfect.
So yeah, it's fun to have clients from different places around the world. Yeah, that's been
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, that is. Yes, it really is. It's kind of like, wow, you're in that whole other part of the world and look how we're connected. And I think it even, for me, grounds in or clicks into the humanness. Like, yeah, there's a lot of light workers here and we're finding each other and we're all in our spaces and locations, yet we can connect. Not just, I mean, I shouldn't say just, but here a lot of us connect in meditation and at the spirit state. But also, look, we can connect in the physical aspect too. So I love that you offer these services, and we'll put a link below in the show notes for you. So, can you share with us anything else, like any other new experiences you have? We have your book, which I'm so excited. I love this book. I'm so glad that you answered that little call, that nudge to put it out there. And it's a magical book. Like you can just feel the energy off of it. And honestly, I'm only halfway through, but I'm loving it. I'm loving it. So I started reading it a few months ago and had to flow into some other of my, those responsibilities that pop up. But I'm going to finish it. So the school year's out and my whole family life is transitioning, and now I have more open time. And you have your book, you have your classes, you have this amazing group and community forming. And so, can you share with everybody your website once again? where they can
Sure.
find you?
It's awakeningtransformation.com. Yeah, and so I also have, so I have a Facebook group. It's called Austin Spiritual Awakening, and we meet in person, but we also have a Zoom meetup. So even though it's called Austin Spiritual Awakening, if you're not in Austin and you want to meet, we meet once a month, the second Tuesday of the month, from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time. If you join the Facebook group, I post the link every month. We meet up, and there's a different topic every month. And we kind of just, I'm not teaching anything. I'm just basically, creating the space and being the organizer, kind of from what you said, where I had so many clients, so many times. It's beautiful. My clients, this person I don't know shows up and I get to hear their whole life story. And then we go on this amazing journey spiritually, and I know them as a soul. And they're like, you're the only person that, I can talk to about this. Nobody else in my life gets this. And I had so many clients telling me that. I'm like, you guys all just need to get together. Like, there's
Yes.
lots of people like you. You're not, people will tell me something and think like, oh, they'll say like, I know this sounds crazy. I'm like, nothing sounds crazy to me. Well, yeah, I mean, I've probably either experienced it myself or definitely my clients have, whatever you have to say, it's not weird. And so, so the Zoom group, even though it's called Austin Spiritual Awakening, is open, to anybody that has Zoom. So that's, a free thing that we do once a month. And like I said, I'm going to start this Divine Will group, and that's another free thing as well. And then also my friend and I have a podcast called Beyond the Illusion that you were a guest on. And so
Yes.
look for Amy's episode on our podcast. So yeah, there's a lot. And then now I'm working on my next book, but maybe not till next year. We'll see how, now I'm doing this other stuff. So I'll see when the next book comes out, but yeah.
Yeah, the divine flow. It's like we have so much, and I'm thinking the human time. If I could replicate myself, I could get more done, but that's why we're guided. Yes, so
Careful what you wish for.
yeah, I know,
AI version of you.
true. Yes. So thank you so much. If there's any messages or anything that you'd like to leave with the audience today.
Well, so thanks for having me. I just really want to encourage everyone to, whatever, like I said, you don't have to be doing a spiritual business to be being a light worker. I just want to encourage everybody to connect with others, through things like your podcast and our groups and things like this. And know that you're not alone, and to really follow whatever your passion is. There is a way that whatever you love to do, to not be afraid to put it out in the world, because especially if something comes back to you again, Spirit's really encouraging you, and there's an opportunity, even though it's uncomfortable. Like, honestly, I never wanted to, I don't like to be on video. I never wanted to, I didn't have before having the podcast, it's like, I don't want to hear my own voice. And, over the years, really putting myself out there with the book and all of these things, didn't feel very comfortable with those things before, but each time I do it, it helps me. Not only does it help me to grow and evolve and to feel more comfortable in my own skin, but yeah, it helps me connect to amazing people. This is how we connect. And the more that we connect to our soul tribe, then the easier it is to step into who we really are, our authentic self on the planet, and the easier it is for us to all be anchoring, this higher vibration. So I hope everyone will, step out of their comfort zone and follow those little soul urgings.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. That is huge. It is huge. And like you say, it's transformational. So I really appreciate you being on today. It's been such a gift and an honor to reconnect. And I hope our audience is just enjoying and feeling all the love that we both are sharing, and letting everybody know, like when you mentioned Soul Tribe, I'm feeling that. Really, I am. And I'm so happy that you have this online opportunity. I feel like you'll be getting some more connections with friends from around the world. And it's such a beautiful container, a beautiful space that you've created. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for tuning in and listening. And again, all of the links will be below. And we'll see you again on the next episode.